The Scottish Football Podcast from BBC Radio Scotland.
Hello there and welcome to the Scottish Football Podcast and another Premiership preview. Today, BBC commentator Liam McLeod and myself are joined by Livingston fan Stuart Barrie, and it's his club we will be discussing this fine day. Stuart, life as a Livy fan, what's that like?
Eventful. No two seasons are the same. We have loads of ups and downs, and it's an adventure. And we're the perennial underdog that kind of overachieves and punches above its weight, and it's never a dull moment.
Hang on, you're saying there no two seasons are the same, but I think what was this, the sixth successive season? Thank goodness I got my teeth in for that one. You've become an established part of the Premiership establishment, are you not?
Possibly. I think that comes down to an attitude thing. We still feel that we're punching above our weight because we are. We've still got a budget that Championship clubs would laugh at. So we're still, feel lucky to be there. And you can see that with the manager and the team at the start of the season. There's a real drive to, let's stay here. Let's make this work.
The perennial underdogs, Liam. Is that how you view Livingston?
I think there's a lot of teams or clubs in the Premiership claim to have the smallest budget. I think when Livingston say that they do, then that is the accurate description. And look, when they came back in to the top flight, they were a breath of fresh air when they beat Partick Thistle in the playoffs. In the final, they'd come through other ties before that. But when they came in, they were a breath of fresh air. There's been top six finishes. There's been trips to Hampden. And if you're a Livingston supporter, since the birth of the club, effectively, it's been a heck of a roller coaster, hasn't it? When you consider how well they did when they were in the top flight the first time around with Jim Leishman, Davy Hay, going on lifting the League Cup, and then all the financial problems that followed, the third division, all that kind of stuff. To then get back to the top table of Scottish football was a magnificent achievement for the club in itself. And they've always had the odd superstar there as well. When you think back to the days of David Fernandez and these guys, brilliant teams in the past, and they'll be disappointed they weren't in the top six last season. I think they kind of fell off the cliff a little bit towards the end, but we can forgive them for that. It's very difficult to sustain consistent performances at the high levels that some of the other clubs, big clubs in the Scottish top flight do. And Livingston have done well to mix it, to be honest.
So what was it, 8th last season, Stuart? Would you consider that to be punching above their weight?
I think 10th is punching above our weight. 8th is amazing. And I think it's just some of our fans were bitterly disappointed not to make top six. And again, that's 2 seasons in a row that we've come really, really close. Last game before the split, before we got there. And that's fairy tale stuff for us. We literally got threadbare squads and, some of the kind of... The players on the unfortunes, they could earn more in the Championship. So that's huge for us to be at that level. And 8th is amazing. And Davy deserves a parade up and down Livingston Centre.
Have you organised one?
He probably does it every day when he goes to work anyway.
Amazingly, well, maybe it's not amazingly given the environment in which he works, but David Martindale, Liam, by my reckoning, is the longest serving manager in the top flight. He's only been there since December 2020.
Yeah, but how good an impact did he make when he first took the job on? It was scary, actually, when you consider the financial disparity between Livy and a lot of the other clubs. He went on that magnificent run. There was Manager of the Month awards, all that kind of stuff. And he's having to deal with another decent turnaround in the squad this summer. He's made a few signings that could make an impact. I think I really want to see Michael Devlin stay injury free. I think everyone does. He's had a terrible time of it over the last number of years, since the 2 big injuries he sustained at Hamilton. The move to Aberdeen looked like it was going to be great. Him and Scott McKenna, who's his big mate, looked as though they were going to form a really good partnership. He got into the Scotland squad, then it all broke down again for him. He had that brief spell at Hibs. He was down at Fleetwood last season. I really hope he gets a sustained run of games for Livingston this season. And a few of the other guys, They've brought in Mo Sangare, midfielders come in from Accrington Stanley. Michael Nottingham has also come in from that club, and Miles Welsh-Hayes has come in from Harrogate Town. But I guess at the end of the day, Stuart, that's the kind of market that Livingston will be fishing in. But occasionally, we saw Terry Butcher do this time and time again at Cally Thistle. You can stumble upon some really decent players at that level, can't you?
Yeah,
You've seen it.
Yeah, definitely. If you look at a player that comes to mind, Christian Montano, who came to us as a winger, and Davy being Davy's got him playing at left back with an attacking prowess. He got 4 or 5 goals last season. He's a big part of what we do going forward. And Davy turns it around. And I think some of the other players to go back in, look at Craig Alcott, who came to us, his career at Rangers had finished, came to us, and then he's one of the Hearts mainstays when he's fit in the Scotland squad. And Declan Gallagher turned his career around. So all these guys that you mentioned can absolutely do it. And if you think there's one thing that connects all of these players, even though they come from different places, they're all big, physically strong players. And I think this season we're probably going to go back to that. Mo Sangre has impressed me. He's really smart in the tackle. His passing's needing to get a bit of it worked on, so that can happen. But he's going to be a player that's going to be aggressive and breaking things down. And
who do you think you'll miss the most, Stuart? Who will you miss the most? Who left? We talk about Nicky Devlin and Jack Fitzwater. Out of those two, they're 2 big misses, obviously.
Huge misses. I think Jack's first season, it's fair to say, wasn't he a great performer? But then he came into a mainstay. He just came just a reliable, good defender. But it's Nicky Devlin we're going to miss. He has attacking down the right, but he also his leadership. He was a really good leader. He was really good off the park. He would really take players under the wing in training. He was really influential. So it's going to take a wee while to adjust to that. A big leadership change there, and he was just a good guy. And I think it's a funny one. We were all gutted to see him go to Aberdeen, but we're all pleased to see him career kick on and do that. So a bittersweet moment. So hopefully he'll come back in a season or 2. But he'll be a big miss. He's a good guy.
You're talking about players in the defensive third, that side of things, but what about up front? Because last season you were the lowest scorers in the division. And I was surprised to see Bruce Anderson still there, because I was reading he was away to Georgia at one point.
Yeah, he went to Georgia, and it must have been so bad there that Livingston seemed much, much better. So
he's missing the Armaville
delighted.
Centre.
That's what it is. It's a designer outlet. He's been going in and getting the cheap designer gear. Bruce is a great player. And I think last season, it's fair to say, he didn't fire on all cylinders. He was injured a wee bit, and he was in and out the team, and he only got a handful of goals. He was behind Big Joel. But the season before, he got 12 goals. And if my memory serves, that was the same as Alfredo Morelos. So it shows you he knows the way to find a goal, and he's sharp. And in pre-season, he's looked really sharp as well. He got a goal on Saturday to save our blushes a wee bit as well. But his running was good. He's closing people down, and when you give him a shot, I think 8 times out of 10 he's going to hit the target, and that's good for a striker at Livingston.
And you mentioned Nubley as well there.
Well, the rumours are he's going, and we'll be gutted to see Big Joel go, because he is our top goal scorer. But with Joel, I think he does a lot more for the team, because I think originally he was a winger. And obviously with his size, Davies put him through the middle a wee bit and got some goals. But look at the last winger we got, Big Lyndon Dykes. He ended up being a sensational number 9 for Scotland. So Joel's in that kind of similar mould, and maybe a wee bit unfair to compare him to Lyndon, but he's got good footwork, he's strong, and I think he must be one of the most fouled players in the leagues as well. And I think because of his size, the referees don't give it. He spends a lot of time, and we can see it. He's getting chopped down a fair bit, and he doesn't get the fouls that I think he deserves. And he's really influential as well, Joel.
So you want to keep a hold of the pair of them, but if one of them was to go and one of them was to stay, what would your preference be?
That's tough. I think wide areas would go. If we can get a couple of $100,000, even a bit more for Big Joel, and Bruce kicks on a wee bit, that would be good. There is talk of a South African winger being at the club for the last few weeks, but we've not been able to get the deal over the line, so that'd be interesting to see him. But no, it's tough. It's like choosing between your kids here. Who do you want, Joel or Bruce? Go with Bruce.
Liam, if David Martindale got a couple of $100,000, he could build a whole new team.
Well, he certainly knows how to spend his meagre budget, doesn't he? Absolutely. As you guys have been saying, they were the lowest scorers in the division last season, and they were also suffering from homesickness. We've been talking about Kilmarnock. Most of the teams actually struggled away from home last season. There were clubs in the top 6 struggled away from home last season. But I think Livy lost their last 8 away league games without scoring a single goal.
Yes.
Again, it's the home form that kind of kept the head above water going into the closing stages of the season. So the need to somehow cure that travel sickness like many other clubs do. For some reason, it's obviously win more games you would think at home than you do away. But for some reason, clubs really are like a rabbit in the headlights when they go away from home when it comes to picking up victories. But I think he's still got a bit of work to do in the transfer market. How much he's going to be able to do is going to be interesting. You'll be hoping, Stuart, that this isn't going to be a season where you will struggle, because I know a lot of people last season tipped Livingston to go down. It's going to be a real serious challenge for Davy this season and his players to try and even get back to that sort of 8th position in the table.
Absolutely. If you look about who our contenders are, I think last season it would have been us, Ross County, St Mirren, possibly Motherwell in and about there, and certainly wouldn't have expected Dundee United, who kind of did us all a favour and performed terribly and allowed us all to kind of escape that. I think it will be between us and Ross County, 2 similarly small sized teams, 2 similar budgets. I think Dundee coming up have got a lot more money than a lot of other clubs, so I think they'll be there or thereabouts. So it's a 2-horse race for that. But then both Ross County and us have defied the odds too, and better squads performed badly last season, so there's nothing to say that Davy can't get the squad performing from the off. And I think what's really important this season, you mentioned an 8-game run, that was horrific. We didn't even score, and we're all sitting there trying to remember what it was like to score and get that buzz again. And I really hope we avoid that, because that was a big loss to confidence, and every week you could see that it was quite hard to turn around. And we often debate it's the amount of wins that we got and the amount of draws we got. If they were evenly spread, it would be a great season. But because we went on that chunk of a run, it was about 2-3 months. It was most of the winter into the spring, and that kind of deflated it a wee bit as well. But hopefully we can get some consistency and get the points on the board early too.
I suppose it's bizarre, because the last time Livingston scored away from home in a league match was the middle of January, and they scored 4 times against St Johnstone. It was ridiculous.
I think that St Johnstone sacked their manager just shortly after that as well. If you looked at a lot of us, I think defeats against us were cost Hibs manager his job, and cost the St Johnstone manager his job. I think there's there's a wee bit in there that when we win,
I'm not sure you should take that as a compliment.
It does. It says everything what a win against us they must think. But yeah, goals are an issue. But one of the things that we've always been good at in the past is getting goals from other places, and that's where your centre halves come in. I think Craig Halkett was our top goal scorer for 2 seasons, so we're looking for these guys to turn in a few more goals. We're missing John Guthrie. Remember him from a few seasons ago? He was nearly into double figures too. So we need Big Eye Oberlite come up. He could get some goals too. And the one thing we need, I don't know if you've ever seen the statistics, penalties. We cannot score a penalty. We missed another barrel load at the weekend too. So if we can convert our penalties, that would help enormously.
You needing Big Lyndon Dykes back for that.
Well, I would take him again. Certainly would be nice to see him.
He won a few
there.
penalties as well, if I remember.
Well, the days of VAR, we might not get the same amount of penalties.
Well, you mentioned VAR there, so this is going to be the first season we've had VAR from the start. What, as a supporter, what was your view of VAR and how it was implemented last season? Did you enjoy it?
I didn't enjoy it. I think it takes the joy out of football. See, when you're sitting there and we've not got big screens. Lucky enough, my screen's not too far from the VAR box, so we try and have a wee look over and try and read the ref's face when he's doing it. But the VAR and the way that it's refereeing games now is not adding to it. Now, I can see that for distinct decisions like offside or things like that, that's definitely an in. But see, when you're coming down here, I think if you remember, Scott Pittman was sent off for a wild challenge that VAR gave, and then there were similar challenges were allowed, and then that starts becoming taken away from things, and you don't know what you're going to get. But the main thing as a fan, I hate scoring a goal, jumping up and then waiting for 3 minutes to see if it is a goal.
Well, you didn't have to do that too many times last season, did you?
No, pretty much in my seat for about 3 months, right enough, yeah. But the ones we get, we want to enjoy, and it's hard to kind of look at it, and everybody looks around. See, if you see the fans when they score now, they all look around to see if it's a goal when they shouldn't. They should be jumping in the air.
So with that in mind, the League Cup, have you enjoyed that?
Some of it's been good. The Hamilton game, we struggled. I think we've not played top-class opposition, it's fair to say, against Brecon. I think with Hamilton, they played us really well. I think they sat deep and we struggled to break them down, and they caught us in the break, but also they passed really well, and that was worrying for us. And also we've got to change the system this season. I think we're going back to three at the back. Mikey Devlin playing on the right is proven to be quite successful as well. He's looking good going forward. I think left back we've got Christian there, or the brilliant James Penrice as well. So I think if we can go to the 5, we'll be solid and stop losing the goals. That's really important. And if we can just eke out some goals, we'll be okay.
Right, Stuart, we're getting to that time in the podcast when I ask you to predict in which position you think Livingston will finish this season. Not the position you hope they finish in, but which position you think they'll finish in. So for this one, I'm going to have a bit of fun. I'm going to start at the top and work my way down. And when I get to the position you think Liv will be in, just tell me to stop.
You could be speaking quite a while then.
Right, here we go. First, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, ninth, 10th, 11th.
Yeah, 11th. I think playoffs for us this season, I think it's going to be tough. I wish it wasn't. I hope, I'd love another 8th, but and I'd love 10th, but I think we're going to be playoffs. I can't see who we're going to be above other than Ross County. That's
the old attitude, Liam, isn't it? Expect the worst and hope for the best. What do you
I don't think there's anything. Yeah, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think if you think they're going to be higher and they end up lower, then you're devastated. But look, if they finish 10th, I think Livingston will be pretty happy. If they can get a little cup run going as well, they'd be even happier with that. Yeah, look, the expectation levels are different for every club, and the clubs who were in the bottom 6 last season, there are some there with higher expectation levels than Livingston. The Livy fans know this. I said this right at the start of the podcast. The Livingston fans who've been supporters of the club over the last 20 years have been through the mill. They've been through, even if they were to go down, they've been through worse times than that. And they've had a great adventure. I mean, this is their longest ever spell in the top flight of Scottish football. They're enjoying it. And they'll be hoping to get another one. I think this is their 6th straight season.
Yep.
So that's pretty good when you consider that goes beyond the 5 in a row they enjoyed just after the turn of the century. And that was a really exciting Livingston team to watch, wasn't it?
Yeah, they were great. They were so different to what they are now. They were cavalier.
Yeah.
And I also think different times then we live within our means now. We're really sensible. The club's really run well. We've got a lot of sensible people in there doing the right things. And that just means that anything above 11th is Davy should get a statue for that. I think that's really important that we can just be realistic. It'd be great to win and be great to say, I nearly said 6 just for a laugh when you were reading out the list there. But I think realistically that's where we are, and that's the club. And, and if you're going to put anybody that's going to turn it around, anybody that's going to overachieve, it's Davy Martindale and the lads and what he can get out of collective.
You've painted some incredible pictures for me. A parade down Livingston Main Street for David Martindale, and then you're rounding it off with a statue being built in his memory outside the stadium. Anyway, Stuart, listen, thank you so much for joining myself and Liam on this Scottish Football Podcast Premiership preview, and thanks very much, folks, for listening to us. More of the same, or broadly similar, tomorrow, but about another team.
The Scottish Football Podcast from BBC Radio Scotland.
A reminder, Behind the Goals with me, Rachel Corsey and Leanne Crichton is now available every Tuesday. Make sure you tune in every week for all things women's football and plenty of special guests. Just search Behind the Goals on BBC Sounds.